The air in my parents' home was thick with the scent of roasted rosemary chicken and my mother Susan's famous vanilla cake. Laughter echoed from the living room, a warm and familiar sound that always felt like a hug. It was my father, Michael's 70th birthday, a milestone that had brought the entire family together. My husband Mark was by my side, his hand resting gently on the small of my back. We were watching my father as he regaled his grandchildren with a story from his youth, his eyes twinkling with the same light I'd known my whole life. Everything felt perfect, almost like a scene from a movie. But I've learned that in life, the most disruptive storms often gather under the clearest skies. And my storm had a name: Megan. Megan, my sister-in-law and Mark's older sister, had a way of commanding attention. She wasn't loud or boisterous, but she possessed a quiet, theatrical flair for positioning herself at the center of every family event. When she and her husband arrived an hour late, the gentle hum of the party shifted. She swept in, dressed in a designer dress that was just a little too elegant for a casual family gathering, carrying a large, exquisitely wrapped gift box. "Oh, I'm so sorry we're late," she announced to the room, though her tone suggested she wasn't sorry at all. "Traffic was an absolute nightmare, but we're here now." She kissed my parents on the cheek, offering them a dazzling smile. I tried to catch her eye to offer a simple, sisterly nod, but she breezed past me as if I were a piece of furniture. It was a familiar sting, one I had grown accustomed to over the years. Mark squeezed my hand, a silent acknowledgement. He knew his sister better than anyone. The party continued, and for a while I allowed myself to relax back into the warmth of the celebration. Mark and I had spent weeks planning the perfect gift for my dad. He was a man of simple tastes but had one great passion: vintage maps. He'd been a history teacher, and for him, maps weren't just about geography. They were stories of time, of exploration, of humanity. After months of searching, I had found it. A rare, beautifully preserved 17th century map of our local county, a piece of history I knew he would treasure. It was expensive, far more than we would usually spend, but for his 70th, it felt right. We'd wrapped it in simple brown paper and twine, a nod to the rustic, historical nature of the gift itself. It was tucked away, waiting for the right moment. That moment came after the cake was cut, and the happy birthday song had faded. My mother, her face glowing, clapped her hands together. "Time for presents!" Megan predictably seized the opportunity. She rose from her chair with a flourish, retrieving the large glossy box she'd brought. "We wanted to give you ours first," she said, placing the heavy gift on my father's lap. "This is from our whole family. We hope you love it." My father looked at the box, then at Megan, his expression one of genuine appreciation. "Megan, you shouldn't have," he said, his voice thick with emotion. She just smiled. "Only the best for you, Michael." My mother, Susan, sat on the arm of his chair, her eyes wide with anticipation. Mark and I stood back, content to let her have her moment. We knew our gift was heartfelt. It didn't need a grand unveiling. With a little help from my mom, my dad began to unwrap the gift. The expensive paper tore away to reveal a dark wooden frame, polished to a high shine. As he lifted it from the box, a collective gasp went through the room. It was a map, not just any map. It was a stunning, hand-colored 17th century map of our county. My breath caught in my throat. It was identical to the one I had sourced, the one currently hidden in our closet. But this one was here, in my father's hands, presented by Megan as her own. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it. It had to be a coincidence. A wild, unbelievable, gut-wrenching coincidence. My father was speechless. He ran a trembling hand over the glass, his eyes scanning the familiar ancient lines of the coastline. "My goodness," he whispered. This is magnificent. I don't know what to say." "I knew you'd like it," Megan said, her voice smooth as silk. She looked around the room, soaking in the admiration. "I remembered you talking about wanting one years ago, and I spent ages tracking this one down. It was quite the find." Mark shot me a look, his brow furrowed in confusion. He knew what our gift was. I could feel a cold knot of dread tightening in my stomach. Something was terribly wrong. My mother, ever the sentimental one, noticed a small card attached to the back of the frame with a ribbon. "Oh, look, Michael, there's a card," she exclaimed. "Read what it says." Megan's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. "Oh, that's just a little something." My dad, fumbling with the ribbon, untied the small cream-colored envelope. He slid a finger under the seal and pulled out the card. His eyes scanned the words, and his expression shifted from joyous disbelief to utter confusion. He looked up, his gaze sweeping past Megan, past my mother, and landing directly on me. He held up the card. "This is for you, I think, Clara." And then he read it aloud. "Dearest Dad, I hope this map guides you to as many happy memories as you've given me. All my love, Clara." The laughter in the room died instantly, replaced by a thick, uncomfortable silence. Every eye darted from my father, who was still holding the card, to me, and then, like a slow-motion wave, to Megan. For a fleeting second, I saw pure, undiluted panic flash in her eyes. It was there, and then it was gone, masked by a performance so masterful it could have won an award. She let out a short, brittle laugh. "Oh my goodness, how utterly bizarre!" she exclaimed, pressing a hand to her chest in feigned astonishment. "Clara, darling, you must have bought your gift from the same little antique gallery as I did. They must have mixed up our cards. Can you believe the incompetence?" Her voice was light and airy, but her eyes were fixed on me, sending a silent, desperate plea mixed with a chilling warning. "Lie for me. Go along with it." My heart was pounding against my ribs. The audacity of the lie was breathtaking. It wasn't a coincidence. It was a theft. But how? How had she gotten her hands on the gift I had so carefully chosen and wrapped? My mind was a whirlwind of confusion and white-hot anger. The gift Mark and I had bought was still in the guest room closet upstairs, wrapped in its simple brown paper. Or was it? Mark stepped closer to me, his presence a solid wall of support. I could feel the anger radiating from him. He didn't believe his sister for a second. "That seems highly unlikely, Megan," he said, his voice dangerously calm. "The card was tied to the frame with a ribbon. The shopkeeper wouldn't have rewrapped your gift and tied on a card meant for someone else." Megan's smile tightened at the edges. "Well, you know those little artsy shops. So disorganized. Who knows what happened? The point is, Dad loves the map." She turned her dazzling smile back to my father, a desperate attempt to redirect the attention. "Don't you, Dad?" My father, Michael, looked from the map to me, his expression clouded with a sorrow that went far beyond a simple mix-up. He knew me. He knew the kinds of gifts I gave, the thought I put into them. He looked at the beautiful, expensive frame, then at the simple, heartfelt words on the card in his hand. He slowly folded the card and tucked it into his shirt pocket, a quiet act of loyalty that spoke volumes. "It is a magnificent gift," he said, his voice measured. He looked at Megan, then his eyes settled on me again. "And a very thoughtful one." My mother, Susan, ever the peacemaker, rushed to fill the suffocating silence. "Well, what a funny story we'll have to tell. Imagine, two people buying the same rare map. Let's not let a little confusion spoil Michael's day," she said, her voice a little too bright. "Who wants more cake?" Her words were the permission the room needed to breathe again. Conversations started up, fragmented and quiet at first, then gradually louder, as guests tried to pretend the invisible bomb had not just detonated in the middle of the living room, but the warmth was gone. The easy joy of the celebration had been replaced by a tense, awkward politeness. Megan avoided my gaze for the rest of the evening, busying herself by laughing too loudly at someone's joke or fussing over her own children. She had gotten away with it for now, and her relief was palpable. I felt a tug on my sleeve. It was Mark. "Let's go to the kitchen," he whispered, his jaw tight. Under the guise of getting a glass of water, we escaped the strained atmosphere. The moment we were alone, the facade I was wearing crumbled. "She stole it, Mark. I don't know how, but she stole it." "I know," he said, his voice a low growl. "I'm going to kill her." "But how?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Our gift is upstairs. I wrapped it myself this morning." A sudden, horrible thought dawned on me. I left my handbag on the console table in the hallway when we arrived. My car keys were in it. The gift was in the back of my car, not in the closet. I had meant to bring it in, but I'd been distracted by greeting everyone. Megan must have seen it when she arrived. She was late. She'd had the time. She must have taken my keys, gone to my car, taken the gift, unwrapped it, and put it in her own fancy box, leaving the card attached because she was in a hurry. It was a brazen, shockingly deceitful plan, executed in a matter of minutes. As I explained my theory, Mark's face grew darker. "That's it," he said. "We are confronting her right now." "No," I said, grabbing his arm. "Not here. Not tonight. Look at Dad. He's trying so hard to pretend everything is okay. Don't ruin this for him. We'll deal with Megan, but we'll do it our way, and we'll do it later." Mark looked like he wanted to argue, but then he sighed, the fight going out of him. "You're right. You're always the better person, Clara." When it was time to leave, the goodbyes were stiff. As I hugged my father, he held on a little longer than usual. "We'll talk tomorrow, sweetheart," he whispered in my ear, so quietly that only I could hear. He squeezed my hand, the small card still in his pocket, a silent promise between us. The drive home was quiet, the silence filled with our shared anger and disbelief. The beautiful, perfect day had been tainted, and a confrontation was no longer a possibility but a certainty. The only question left was how we would expose a lie so bold it had almost succeeded. The silence in our car on the way home was heavier than any argument could have been. It was a shared space of fury, hurt, and disbelief. When we finally pulled into our driveway, the familiar comfort of home felt distant, tainted by the day's events. Before we even stepped out of the car, I turned to Mark, a cold, hard resolve solidifying in my chest. "Check the boot," I said, my voice flat. He nodded, his expression grim. He got out and opened it, and after a moment of rummaging, he pulled out a crumpled ball of simple brown paper and a piece of twine. He held it up. It was the wrapping I had used for the map, discarded like trash. Seeing it there, so carelessly tossed aside, felt like a punch to the gut. It was the final, undeniable proof. The coincidence theory, as thin as it was, evaporated completely. This was a calculated act of deception. Inside the house, the anger I had suppressed at the party finally broke through. "It's not even about the map anymore," I said, pacing the living room floor. "It's the pathology of it, Mark. The sheer nerve. To steal a gift, a deeply personal gift, and then present it as your own in front of the entire family? And then to lie, so smoothly, so convincingly. It's chilling." Mark ran a hand through his hair, a gesture he reserved for moments of extreme stress. "I know. I've seen her do things like this before, little things, but never ever on this scale. She's always had to be the center of attention, the most successful, the most admired. When we were kids, she would break one of my toys and then find a replacement for me, getting all the credit from our parents for being so kind. I just never thought she would stoop this low as an adult." "What do we do?" I asked, finally stopping to look at him. "If we call her and accuse her, she'll deny everything. She'll twist it, say I'm jealous or crazy. She'll play the victim, and your mom will want to believe her to keep the peace." He sank onto the sofa, his head in his hands. "You're right. It's our word against hers. And she's a much better liar than we are truth-tellers." We sat in silence for a few minutes, the only sound the ticking of the clock on the mantelpiece. The map had been my idea, my find. I had spent hours researching, calling galleries, and finally tracking down the perfect one at a small, dusty antique shop 2 towns over. The shopkeeper was an elderly man named Mr. Gable, a passionate historian himself. We had talked for nearly an hour about its origins. A thought sparked. "The shop," I said, sitting up straighter. "Mr. Gable. He'll remember me. I have the receipt in my purse. The credit card statement will show the purchase. We have proof." Mark looked up, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "Okay, we have proof she couldn't have bought it. But how do we use it? How do we corner her without creating a family war that my mother will never recover from?" That was the million-dollar question. A public shaming felt wrong, and it would give Megan the ammunition she needed to paint us as the aggressors. The confrontation had to be controlled. It had to be precise. "We do it here," I said, my plan forming as I spoke. "On our territory. We invite her and Ben for dinner. We invite my parents too. We create a calm, controlled environment and we lay out the facts. Not with anger, but with irrefutable proof." Mark was hesitant. "My mom will hate it. She'll see it as us setting a trap." "It's not a trap if you're telling the truth," I countered. "It's a clarification. Dad knows. He already knows, Mark. He's on our side. And your mom, she needs to see who her daughter really is. This isn't just about a stolen gift. It's about a pattern of manipulation that has to stop." As if on cue, my phone rang. The screen lit up with my dad's name. I answered, putting it on speakerphone. "Hi, Dad. Clara, sweetheart? Are you home and safe?" His voice was weary but steady. "We're home, Dad. We're okay." There was a pause. "I'm so sorry about what happened today, sweetheart. Your mother is trying to smooth it over, but I'm not blind. I knew the moment I read that card. It was your voice, your words. And I know how you wrap your presents. You always have since you were a little girl. Simple paper, lots of love." Tears pricked my eyes. To be seen, to be understood so completely by him, meant the world. "I kept the card, Clara," he continued. "It's right here. It means more to me than any map. But I want you to know, I am furious on your behalf. This isn't right, and it shouldn't be swept under the rug." Mark and I exchanged a look. This was the support we needed. "Dad," I said, my voice stronger now, "we're going to handle it. We're inviting Megan and Ben over for dinner on Saturday. And we'd like for you and Mom to be here too." I heard him sigh, a sound of relief. Good, we'll be there. It's time. After we hung up, the path forward felt clear. This was no longer just my fight. It was ours. Mark stood up and came over to me, wrapping me in a hug. Okay, he said against my hair. Let's do this. I took a deep breath and pulled out my phone. My fingers flew across the screen as I composed a message to Megan. I kept it simple, neutral, and devoid of any emotion. Hi, Megan. Mark and I would like to have you and Ben over for dinner this Saturday. We have something we need to discuss as a family. Let me know if that works. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. A few minutes later, 3 dots appeared. Then, a reply. Sounds lovely. We'll be there. X. The X felt like a final twist of the knife. She had no idea what was coming. The trap, as Mark had called it, was set. And on Saturday, the truth would finally have its moment. The 3 days leading up to Saturday were a strange mix of calm resolve and simmering anxiety. Mark and I went about our routines, but the upcoming dinner hung in the air between us, an unspoken pact. I didn't just want an apology from Megan. I wanted her to understand the gravity of her actions. I wanted my mother-in-law, Susan, to finally see the daughter she so often defended through a clear, unfiltered lens. On Saturday evening, I prepared a simple meal. A roasted chicken, the same dish my mother had made for the birthday party, a subtle but deliberate choice. As I moved around the kitchen, I felt a sense of detached focus. This wasn't about hosting. It was about orchestrating a moment of truth. I found the receipt from Mr. Fau, Gable's antique shop, and placed it, along with my credit card statement, in a drawer in the living room sideboard. It was my ace in the hole. My parents arrived first. My dad, Michael, gave me a tight hug, his presence a quiet reassurance. My mom, Susan, however, was visibly on edge. Clara, Michael, she began, her voice pleading, whatever this is about, please, can't we just try to get along? Families are complicated. Sometimes we have to let things go for the sake of peace. Sometimes, Susan, peace is just another word for letting a bully win. My dad responded gently but firmly, putting a hand on her shoulder. Let Clara and Mark handle this. Susan looked away, her lips pressed into a thin line of disapproval, but she said no more. When the doorbell rang again, my stomach tightened. Mark opened the door to Megan and her husband, Ben. Megan swept in, a bottle of expensive wine in her hand and a bright, breezy smile on her face. She was completely oblivious, radiating the confidence of someone who believed she had committed the perfect crime. This smells wonderful, Clara, she chirped, kissing the air near my cheek. You'll have to give me the recipe. The irony was so thick I could have choked on it. It's my mom's recipe, I replied, my voice even. The dinner was excruciating. Megan dominated the conversation, recounting a lavish holiday she and Ben were planning, complaining about a minor inconvenience at a high-end department store, and name-dropping with practiced ease. Ben, a quiet man who seemed to live in his wife's shadow, nodded along at all the right moments. Mark and I exchanged glances. He was a coiled spring, ready to snap. I gave him a subtle shake of my head. Not yet. We waited until after the main course was cleared away. I served coffee, and as everyone settled back, the manufactured cheer finally dissipated, leaving a tense silence in its wake. This was the moment. I took a deep breath. Megan, I began, my voice calm and measured. I looked directly at her. I'm glad you could come. We didn't invite you here just for dinner. We need to talk about Dad's birthday present. Megan's smile didn't falter, but a flicker of something, wariness perhaps, entered her eyes. The map? I know, wasn't it a wonderful find? Dad was so thrilled. He was, I agreed. He was thrilled by the map I bought for him. The air crackled. Susan drew a sharp breath. Ben shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Megan, however, let out a small, incredulous laugh. Clara, are we back to this? The shopkeeper made a mistake. He mixed up the cards. It's a funny story, nothing more. It's not a story, Megan. It's a lie, Mark interjected, his voice low and hard as steel. And we know it. A lie? Megan placed a hand on her chest, her performance beginning. She looked around the table, her eyes wide with manufactured hurt. I don't understand why you're attacking me. I went to great lengths to find a special gift for Dad. And this is the thanks I get? Accusations? What lengths did you go to? I asked quietly. Tell me. Which gallery did you buy it from? What was the shopkeeper's name? I'm curious. Panic flared in her eyes again, hotter this time. I don't remember the name of the place. It was a little antique shop somewhere on the coast. I found it by chance. I paid in cash. The lies were coming faster now, more frantic. I had her. That's interesting, I said, rising from my chair and walking to the sideboard. I opened the drawer and pulled out the papers. Because I remember everything perfectly. The shop is called Gable's Histories in Northwick. The owner's name is Mr. Gable. He's a lovely elderly man who's owned the shop for 40 years. I didn't pay in cash. I paid with this. I walked back to the table and placed the credit card statement in the center, my finger pointing to the line item, Gable's Histories, $2,200. Then I placed the original itemized receipt next to it. And here's the receipt he gave me. I finished, my voice never rising above a conversational tone. The silence that followed was absolute. Megan stared at the papers as if they were venomous snakes. The color drained from her face, leaving her porcelain skin a sickly, waxy white. All the poise, all the practiced confidence, vanished in an instant, leaving behind a raw, cornered desperation. Ben stared at his wife, his mouth slightly agape. My mother, Susan, looked from the receipt to her daughter, her expression a mixture of disbelief and dawning horror. My dad simply watched Megan, his face a mask of profound disappointment. Megan looked up, her gaze darting between us, searching for an escape route that no longer existed. Her mask was shattered. The truth was on the table, undeniable and stark. Her eyes finally met mine, and in them, I saw no remorse, only the pure, unadulterated fury of being caught. For a long moment, the only sound was the frantic ticking of the clock, each second stretching into an eternity. Megan's face, stripped of its confident mask, was a maelstrom of emotions. Then, rage won. "You set me up," she spat, her voice a low, venomous hiss. She pushed back from the table, her chair scraping harshly against the floor. "You planned this whole thing, this whole humiliating little performance, just to make me look bad. You've always been jealous of me, Clara. Always." Jealous? The absurdity of the accusation broke through my own carefully constructed calm. Jealous of what, Megan? Your lies? Your cruelty? I bought a gift for my father, a man I love, and you stole it. You stole it from my car, wrapped it in your own box, and lied to everyone's face. There is no other version of this story. You can't prove that, she shot back, but her voice lacked conviction. Ben finally spoke, his voice quiet but filled with a weary shame. "Megan, stop. Just stop. They can prove it. It's right there." He gestured to the receipt on the table. He looked at her, truly looked at her, and for the first time I saw him not as Megan's husband, but as a man who had just realized the extent of the charade his life had become. But the most devastating blow came from her mother. Susan, who had spent a lifetime making excuses for her daughter, looked at Megan with tears welling in her eyes. Her expression was one of heartbreak, not of anger. "Why, Megan?" Susan whispered, her voice cracking. "I have always stood by you. I have always defended you. I told myself it was just sibling rivalry, that you just wanted to be loved. But this is not about love. This is about malice. You didn't just lie to Clara. You lied to all of us. You took a beautiful moment and you made it ugly. Why?" Megan stared at her mother, her last line of defense crumbling before her eyes. For a second, I thought she might break, that she might finally confess. Instead, she hardened. She snatched her purse from the floor. "I don't have to sit here and be interrogated by my own family," she said, her voice trembling with rage. "Ben, we're leaving." Ben didn't move. He looked at his wife, then at Mark, then at me. "I think you should go, Megan," he said softly. "I'm going to stay for a minute. We need to talk when you get home." If a look could kill, Ben would have been a dead man. Without another word, Megan turned on her heel and stormed out, slamming the front door so hard that the coffee cups on the table rattled. In the ringing silence she left behind, Susan finally broke down, covering her face with her hands as she sobbed. My father went to her, wrapping his arms around her. Ben looked at us, his face etched with mortification. "I am so sorry," he said, his voice barely audible. "I had no idea. I swear it." Mark nodded, his anger deflating into a kind of grim exhaustion. "We know, Ben. It's not your fault." After a few more minutes of strained conversation, Ben left, the weight of the world seemingly on his shoulders. The four of us, me, Mark, and my parents, were left in the aftermath. My dad walked over to me and took my hands in his. "I am proud of you, Clara," he said. "You did the right thing, and you did it with grace. It was hard, but it was honest." He then reached into his shirt pocket and pulled out the small cream-colored card he had saved from his birthday. He held it out to me. "The map is a beautiful object," he said, his eyes meeting mine. "But this This is the real gift. This is what I'll treasure. The words from your heart. We didn't talk much more that night. The emotional toll had been immense. But as Mark and I cleaned up, a strange sense of peace settled over our home. The truth, as painful as it had been, was liberating. The toxic dynamic that had poisoned our family gatherings for years had been lanced. The future was uncertain. I didn't know if we would ever have a real relationship with Megan again, or what would become of her marriage. But for the first time, the foundation of our family felt solid, built on truth instead of appeasement. Love, I realized, isn't always about keeping the peace. Sometimes it's about having the courage to face a painful truth together, to stand up for what is right, even when it's the hardest thing to do. It's about knowing that a simple card with heartfelt words can be worth more than the grandest gesture, and that true family will always see you, even when others try to cast you in shadow. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs a message of courage and truth.